WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
This is now awarded.
Live in the studio.
It's the Out of Bounds Show with Low Bounds. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
And good morning on a chilly Monday as we head into Christmas later in the week. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for making us your SEC football show of choice. We are the Out of Bounds Show. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. WRKS, we're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Of course, we're live in the Bank Plus studio. Several different ways you can reach out, get in touch with us. May do a caller of the day. Not sure I've done that ever, but anyway. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. 707-3750. Twitter handle at BowBounds. Mississippi Ag John Deere Tractor text line is always 601-885-3776. Lot going on. Woo! What a weekend in college football. Baby. That's what I thought. I think that's what I thought. Man, that Mike Leach sweatshirt is awesome that I'm watching right now. As we do this every week, we pull up the Mississippi State and Ole Miss game and watch it again in studio. And that's our work. That's our job. That's kind of cool. What's your job on a Monday? Well, I have to watch Mississippi State and Ole Miss again, or whoever's playing. Or Good Morning Football with Kay Adams.
By the way, I'm a fan.
110%. I've got a little bit of time left to move this needle. Maybe I did move it over the weekend because I got to tell you what I did. But I actually went to the game. I was not going. Usually if I go up on Thursday or Friday to Starkville. And I was sitting there, and there were no takers in my house, which was fine. And I just thought, okay, I'll go.
What?
Yep. 9 o'clock Saturday morning. I guess it only takes like 10 minutes to throw some clothes in a duffel bag or whatever, and head up to Starkville. And I didn't really have I had no plan. It's like no plan, nobody with me. And, I had some friends that were kind enough to ask me to sit in their box. And I was like, okay, it could rain. I'll do that. It could be cold. I'll do that. And so I drove into Starkville. Already had a to-go order waiting on me. Pick it up, get a little food, go to the stadium, and had zero expectations, obviously, as far as watching Mississippi State play well. And then they win the game, and they win the game convincingly, which was interesting. If you listened to the show on Thursday and Friday, you knew that it was a pick'em. And with Lee Sterling had Missouri. He didn't play that game, by the way. He doesn't play all the games he talks about on the air. But impressed with the resolve of the Mississippi State team. And Blake, I thought that the play of the game was pretty simple. Mississippi State, had Missouri stopped. Errol Thompson gets called for targeting. Missouri gets first down and goes down and scores, and usually that's it for a team that's as fragile as the Mississippi State team is this year. And then, boom, Mississippi State punts it to Missouri. They muff the punt. The ball goes in the end zone, and the long snapper recovers it, and that kicks some life into the MSU team. And from there, they really took the game over. And just slowly but surely, I thought the drive going into half, 2 drives going into half were huge. And then, of course, they got the ball in the second half. But Will Rogers played well. The Mississippi State defense played really well. Missouri was going for their 6th win.
Yeah, they were 5-4. before the Georgia game, they were on a 3-game win streak, so they had been playing well.
They had played really well this year under Drinkwitz, and they've got an NFL running back and then another dude who can
Larry
play.
Roundtree III. What a name. Larry Roundtree III.
And so you look at what they were doing, they were a more complete team. And
absolutely.
Mississippi State, that defense, good grief.
Yeah. Shout out senior, like you said, senior long snapper, walk-on, Paul Blackwell. Only time his name's ever been mentioned. I mean, what a job done to catch that football. And like you said, it gave a team that just had not had that type of play early in a game all season long, it felt like.
No.
Gave them some type of spark.
They needed something good to happen. And you could tell on the sideline that they were excited they were getting off the field. Then all of a sudden, Missouri gets the call. Missouri drives it down. And then you're thinking, this is going to be one where Missouri just
runs for 7 yards a carry, and you just can't stop this guy.
They win 28-17, and there's a lot of what might have been. Instead, what we've been harping on for weeks now is they had to win a game.
Just find a way.
I will tell you this. Dad's Mississippi State, I'm talking about anybody listening. Your dad's Mississippi State would have gotten beat on average 42-10 the last month. If you'd have played out the way everything played out with Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn, and Missouri. And this is a different deal when a couple of things are happening. One, you have a quarterback. Two, you can throw the football. We've talked about it for years on this show. For the better part of 100 years, Mississippi State's had no passing game. When you have a QB, you have a shot. I can't believe he's played as well as he has. Will Rogers.
Setting records for freshman QBs at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And he's only started 5 games now.
Is that it?
I think. This may have been number 6, but 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, he had some spot duty for a while, right?
Because KJ was back and forth with KJ and Will.
And when you have a QB and you can throw the football, you don't get beat 42-10 on average by Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn, and Missouri. When your dad's Mississippi State, that would have happened. If the only thing you could do is run the football, which is what they've been the better part of 100 years,
yes,
then you would see more lopsided scores.
Well, because let's not pretend this is the first inept offense we've seen in Mississippi State history. So it's been inconsistent. It's been struggle for Mississippi State this season, and yet, like you said, at times you've seen the promise, the glimmer of hope offensively. Well,
Will Rogers has played really, really well.
And the guy we just saw on screen, Jaden Walley.
They have over 145 receptions.
Yeah, from freshmen.
Skill players.
Running backs, receivers, and tight ends.
Now, I want you to say that out loud.
Yeah.
I want you to think about that number real quick.
Leads the country.
No, it doesn't just lead the country. It
by a mile.
They run away from everybody.
Yeah.
Over 145 receptions from freshman offensive skill players. Now, that is unheard of.
Jaden Walley, 4th straight 100-yard receiving game, 5 for 129.
First time since Fred Ross in 2015?
Yeah, and one of only 4 receivers in the league to do that this season.
Well, I didn't think that they would win. Blake made me pick Mississippi State. So I could come on here and say I told you so.
But neither of us felt like, woo, this is in the bag.
I picked both Mississippi State and Ole Miss. I picked MSU because everybody thinks I pick against them, which is not the case. But they won the game. That defense, Zach Arnett signed a multi-year deal last week. They bumped him to 7 figures. He's 34 years old. Last time I checked, making $1 million a year at 34 years old in Starkville, Mississippi, probably is a pretty good deal.
Pretty good. Also, State covered the 49 by themselves.
Yeah, now that's something else to discuss as far as the over. I hadn't even thought about that. I should have. I guess I was thinking about other things throughout the night. Then there was so much more football to be played on Saturday. We all got a crew together and watched a little Bama, Florida with some steaks and vino. Live in the Bank Plus studio, the show is powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Big board coming up next. Mississippi State, Ole Miss. We'll recap, get into some bowl game discussion, too.
The big board. What's on the big board?
Oh, man. So, Ole Miss to the Outback Bowl. I think somebody was talking about that last Thursday. We did a whole segment. What was it, the 8:15 segment last Thursday on the Outback Bowl? It's a great bowl if you go. Golly, that's fun. Ole Miss playing Indiana. Tom Allen, former Hugh Freeze assistant, who's done a good job with the Indiana Hoosiers, right? We've never talked Indiana football. They were a basketball school until Bobby Knight torpedoed their program 20-something years ago. I was at the 1987 Final Four when Bobby Knight actually had a good program. Actually, that night was it. It was over. Who knew that Indiana basketball would never be the same? I didn't. I was 13 years old. But anyway, point is, Ole Miss will play Indiana in the Outback Bowl. That's a great bowl. If you want to if you're comfortable with traveling during the holidays, and I don't know what the Blake, I don't know what the attendance policy is there, but Florida's been pretty wide open from the jump. Yeah. So
their NFL games are, I think, at 30% right now.
Oh, perfect. So if you want to get a ticket and go, man, and I'm, of course, I'm sure a lot of you have already been to Tampa, but the whole Tampa thing, the stadium, getting there's easy. Like I said, parking's, but I mean, a lot of you will Uber, but man, that's a fun bowl.
Yeah, and 30% is more than most bowls fill in a normal year anyway, so you'll be fine.
Well, it's kind of like what somebody said about Governor Tate Reeves capping college basketball at 10%. That's perfect for Ole Miss and Mississippi State because that's all that shows up anyway.
Yeah, it's fine. Who cares?
Yeah,
it only hurts Mississippi State's women's program. That's
okay, so back to the bowl games. Ole Miss to the Outback, Ole Miss in Indiana, Mississippi State.
And weirdly,
we'll go to
that Outback Bowl is January 2nd this year.
Okay,
which is odd.
So MSU is going to play Tulsa.
Yes,
in Fort Worth,
Armed Forces
in the Armed Forces Bowl, and they get another game too. That's 11 straight bowl games for Mississippi State. Say that out loud. Actually, you should say that throughout the holidays.
Ooh, so tasty and ironic.
Make sure to say it loud for the people in the back. 11 straight bowl games for MSU. That's crazy. So MSU and Ole Miss going bowling.
I don't know if we went.
Everybody's going bowling except Vandy and LSU?
That's correct.
Okay.
LSU for self-imposed. Even South Carolina is going bowling to the Gasparilla Bowl.
And that's down in the Tampa area, right?
Yeah,
St.
Petersburg, yeah, but Tampa too. Both games for State and Ole Miss are at 11:30. State's is New Year's Eve at 11:30, December 31st, and Ole Miss's is January 2nd, 11:30. Normally the Outback Bowl is a January 1 bowl.
So 11:30 a.m.?
Yes.
I did not realize that was a Tito's Vodka Bloody Mary game.
Yeah, I'm all about it on New Year's Eve. That's a good time to play instead of New Year's Eve night when there's more going on. I'd rather get your game out of the way early, and then you have your night free to do what you want.
Okay.
You know, if you're going to do a New Year's Eve party, playing a game at 6 is kind of annoying.
Yeah. So there we've got MSU. We have MSU and Ole Miss in a bowl game. Ole Miss to Tampa in the Outback against Indiana. Again, Tom Allen, former Freeze assistant. Hugh Freeze assistant. Hugh Freeze doesn't have a job, by the way, a new job yet. That's something else we'll talk about later in the show. Mississippi State, huge win over, again, man, we talk about it all the time. Winning's hard. It's extremely difficult in this league. And then when you're playing all these true freshmen, against a Missouri team that was going for win number 6 in a year where you're only playing 10 games in their conference games, Missouri had Missouri had beat LSU, they beat Kentucky, they beat South Carolina, Vandy, and Arkansas. And, and they had to play Bama. They don't draw Bama much. They started the year with Alabama. I know doesn't that feel like a long time ago? It does to me.
A million years.
Yeah, that MSU LSU game and Ole Miss Florida game, that first weekend,
Boy, I'd like to have seen Ole Miss play Florida when they were a little bit more put together.
Florida impressed me hanging in that game in the SEC championship game on Saturday night. They still need to upgrade at several positions, but man, they hung around and I thought they played well. I will say this about Ole Miss and LSU. I was surprised at the outcome. Obviously, I didn't know that Matt Corral was going to turn the ball over 6 times.
And be missing his top 2 targets.
Yeah, Elijah Moore and Yeboah opting out. Obviously, nobody's going to feel sorry for Ole Miss, whether it's in the league or in this state with everything Mississippi State's gone through. But LSU is so poorly coached. I cannot. It is hard to be that poorly coached on offense and defense.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is they've still got enough dudes that they can win a game. I thought they kept giving it away by getting bogged down inside the 10 and having to kick field goals. And eventually that would catch up with them because you can't kick field goals and win against Ole Miss.
Yeah.
But that is a poorly coached football team on both sides of the ball, LSU.
Yeah, and LSU got lucky that Corral had his second worst game of the year, I guess,
Right.
other than the Arkansas game.
Right.
So, like you said, we talked about that. Would LSU's biggest chance would be to keep the ball on offense, which I think they did a pretty good job of. They had a receiver go for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, which is insane.
I actually thought they could have run the ball more effectively
Yeah.
and was questioning why they were stopping the clock at times, but yeah.
But that guy went off,
Yeah.
Butte. So, but also, Ole Miss had to hand the ball to them, and they did for one of the few games this year.
I didn't see even with Elijah and Yeboah out. I did not see that. It goes to show you that they've got a lot of work to do too between now and next year to replace those 2 guys.
No doubt.
Those. I mean, we know that Elijah Moore may be the best wide receiver to ever play at Ole Miss. Again, that doesn't mean that he'll have the best NFL career, but this season alone, he has been,
yeah.
I think, first team All-American, not first team SEC. I mean, check that box, but first team All-American type player, and yeah, I mean that was a blow to them as far as adjusting, losing their best player, and then another really good player. 2 guys that are going to go on to it was interesting timing on their opt-out, like to play all the way through 8 games. Almost didn't play 10, so that was their 9th game on Saturday. We know that the A&M game was postponed, but to play all the way through 8 games and then opt out late in the week was, I don't blame a kid. We saw enough injuries yesterday in the NFL. I get the whole thing. But I just thought it was odd timing.
Yeah, it would have made more sense to me after this game, before the bowl game, right? Like to say, I'm not going to play the bowl game. Okay, sure, whatever.
But
thought it was interesting.
Maybe someone around them said, "Look, you
Not
can't
worth it.
You can't take a chance taking a shot at your knee or whatever, ankle and so on, and you need to go ahead and hang it up." I don't know.
Yeah, but they're both going to go check their stock at the combine, and we'll see them in the NFL. That's for sure. Both State and Ole Miss opening as underdogs in early betting lines. Obviously, this is well before we know anything about who may or may not be at bowl games and this, that, and the other. But Indiana, the Hoosiers are a 7-point favorite over the Ole Miss Rebels, which seems like a lot. And Tulsa, a 2-point favorite over Mississippi State.
Okay.
Tulsa's ranked, by the way.
Yeah,
whatever that's
so
worth.
I'm looking at who Tulsa's played and beat this year, and they beat some good teams. Central Florida. I mean, they beat East Carolina. They beat South Florida. Those are good G5 teams. They beat Tulane. We've been talking about Tulane nonstop with Will Hall and all that. They lost. I'll give you an example. They lost to Cincinnati
By 3.
by 3
Yeah.
points, and Cincinnati had a good football team. So, and they beat Navy too. So, out of bounds. 105.9 The Zone ESPN is powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Also, award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Bet $50 at the Sportsbook. Play Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $30. The show is also presented by Mississippi Sports Medicine Orthopedic Center. SEC Insider hit next. Portico is a brand new development in Starkville, Mississippi, located 5 minutes from campus behind the Hilton Garden Inn and Suites. Portico has 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 0-lot line homes that are move-in ready right now. Call McBride Real Estate, 662-338-0882 to see a Portico home today. Portico in Starkville. Beautiful new development, 5 minutes from campus. That's Portico.
Everyone ready?
This is the SEC Insider Hit. Presented by your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local. Go with a home team.
Recapping the weekend, SEC football, Mississippi State with a huge win over Missouri. You just didn't want to go from Vanderbilt till next year without a W. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home. Save with your local Farm Bureau insurance agent. Any of the 82 counties in the state of Mississippi. You can also jump on favorites.com and save. Get a quote in 4 minutes or less. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. 601-707-3750. Twitter handle @BowBounds. And the Mississippi Ag John Deere tractor text line, which I was kind of surprised at the text we received during the big board. So we'll hit that here in just a second on Ole Miss and Elijah Moore. Mississippi Ag John Deere tractor text line, 601-885-3776. And Dole hit us with the text. He's a huge Ole Miss fan. And he said that I was referencing Elijah Moore as a first-team All-American wide receiver. And he said you can't be All-American and quit on your team. I don't know if that's how the overwhelming majority of Ole Miss fans look at what happened on Thursday afternoon as Elijah Moore quitting on his team. I mean, Yeboah is a big piece of the puzzle too, but Elijah's like the name this year. I'm surprised at that. You can call it an opt-out, I guess. That's what we've referred to him. We've had literally hundreds and hundreds of opt-outs throughout the year.
But we've also seen this exact move in years prior.
Not before the last. It happens in between finishing the regular season and the bowl game. And so this is odd in that you play all the way through and you got one game left. And now, if Ole Miss wins that game, I think they go to the Citrus Bowl over Auburn.
Instead of Auburn. It would have been an interesting debate. Absolutely.
I know Auburn beat them, but I wonder if they go to the Citrus Bowl because of Auburn not in this murky spot where they still – well, I guess they're now starting to interview maybe some guys that were – let's say they interview Sarkisian yesterday or today because he finished up the SEC championship game. Who knows, some other championship coordinators and so on.
Cristobal, big name that was mentioned a lot, with Oregon.
But back to, I don't think most Ole Miss fans will look at it like that. He had such a huge monster year and made so many big plays. After the peeing incident last year in the Golden Egg, to come back, have the year that he had. An opt-out on a Thursday afternoon, maybe the timing is odd. I don't know who knew what, when, and where. Maybe the opt-out would have been better on Sunday or Monday, giving you 3, 4 more practices to acclimate and adjust to not having Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah. But for whatever reason, they felt like they needed to end their careers at Ole Miss. And so they will not be joining Ole Miss in Tampa for the Outback Bowl. There it is.
I mean, why risk millions of dollars over the course of your career to play in a meaningless game. I mean, we hate to see it, but I think this is another example of players understanding more and more the power shift and the dynamic of what they can do for themselves in their college career.
Well, and again, this year, there were so many opt-outs even before the season.
Yes.
Look,
Joey Bosa 2 years ago played 3 games for Ohio State and said, I don't think I want to do this. I'm out. I'm going to the NFL.
Yeah.
So, I get it. It stinks. Like we said, the timing is tough. You'd have maybe loved for him to play against LSU and then opt out. But he did more in 8 games than anyone else on your team did for you offensively. True. And so if he wants to opt out to pursue his NFL career, that's his opportunity. I think it's interesting. This unnamed texter says, do you think it's disrespectful to the university and their teammates, much less all the people that sacrifice to buy tickets and pay club dues every year?
I think what? I'm sorry, what?
You're not. Listen, I understand what you're saying. You spend money,
can't
but you don't
compare what you're doing. First of all, you choose what to do with your money, and you have to know that there's no guarantee. I mean, Matt Corral, you could have invested in 6 club level seats, and Matt Corral could have gotten hurt in the first game.
Yes. Absolutely.
Who knows? I mean, he could have been in a car accident, broke his leg.
Did the Cowboys people get their money back when Dak went down in week 5? You get a prorated account? No.
When you go in and you make your investment, it is, and then you have the right to not go to the games.
Yes.
So that's tying those two together is a really big stretch. It's interesting here, the feedback that I'm receiving. It's funny. Every individual is different. I mean, we have people on the text line that are like, I get it. It's a business decision. He had everything to lose and nothing to gain. All right. So that's one text from Bo. Not me, but another Bo.
Cajun Bo.
War Eagle Rich, who I met last week, says if you play 80% of the year and then opt out, it's quitting. Now, I like War Eagle Rich, but I agree to disagree with him. Again, the kids don't owe. They just don't owe me, you, or anybody else anything. But
how about what Good News Jones says? That the Braylon Sanders injury is a prime example in that exact game of why Elijah Moore chose to not play.
Yeah, and then the whole wet field and everything. I don't know.
Maybe that played into it. Maybe they looked at it and said, look, that field looks awful.
Or maybe Elijah Moore just had some representation lined up, which, by the way, is totally legal to meet with people, and just said, I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger. And once I become a professional, I can, receive money and do what I want to do and move on and move to a facility and start working out towards the draft. Interesting debate. I didn't know we were going to go there before the show. Maybe I had not thought all the way through the Elijah Moore, Kenny Yeboah. Yeboah is not as big of even though he's very dangerous and can catch a 40-yard touchdown pass on you in a heartbeat. And was an asset for Ole Miss throughout the year. And I understand the numbers didn't hold throughout, but he still made some wonderful plays, and defensive coordinators had to know about him and where he was and spend some time on him throughout the week, which is what you want. I mean, Mississippi State hasn't had that type player in a while. Now Jaden Wiley all of a sudden is a guy that you actually have to know, you have to prepare for, know where he is, and he's not but a true freshman. He'll be an all-SEC freshman team.
Yes.
Sorry, not true freshman.
Would you like to know what came out Wednesday before Elijah Moore opted out Thursday? Mel Kiper Jr.'s latest rankings. Do you know where Elijah Moore ranked in the receiver group?
All right.
Because we talked about this. He was like 8th mid-season.
Let's say he was 4th.
Oh, man. Did you read this?
No.
He was 4th. He was behind Devonta Smith, who's moved up to number 1 ahead of Jamar Chase, which is interesting.
Okay.
Then Jamar Chase 2, Waddle 3, so 2 Alabama kids. Shocker. And then Elijah Moore 4.
Okay.
He had Elijah Moore mocked at number 23 on his big board.
Oh.
That is the highest anyone's had Elijah Moore all season long. That came out about 24 hours prior to his announcement.
Well, that's interesting. Mel Kiper Jr. has Elijah Moore going 23rd in the NFL draft.
He was previously unranked in his big board. I mean, that's what I'm telling you. This has been we talked about this. Where does he stack up nationally? Because there's a lot of talented receivers this year. This is the highest we've ever seen him.
And I think it is more than worthy, the way that everything that he brings to the table. Interesting. All right, so So that was one of the storylines. Moore and Yeboah opt out. For us, we found out on Thursday. I don't know when this discussion went down with Lane Kiffin. Mississippi State with a huge win considering what they – did you ever think after the first few weeks of the season that from Georgia to Missouri, those 4 games, Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn, Missouri, that they would play as well as they have played? And in most years, your dad and granddad's Mississippi State would have gotten blown out 42-14 on average in those games if you were built the way that they're usually built or in massive transition. And yet today, this thing looks a little different. There's one game separating Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Ole Miss won 4, MSU won 3. There's a lot of excitement around this core group of freshmen at MSU. Again, Will Rogers, I thought he played. I understand he had a couple of turnovers. I thought he played great. The weight of the world's on him. If you're not good at QB, there's not even really any point in running out of the locker room anymore. He can make every throw. I will say this: a couple of those throws to Jaden Walley, the throw to Brad Cumbus in the end zone.
The Osiris Mitchell fade
was nice.
That was the best throw of the game, in my opinion. He lapped it right to him over a defender. That was beautiful.
But he was like a surgeon out there, just picking apart Missouri. He had 2 drop. Well, more than that, but the Jaden Walley down the sideline could have easily been called. I say that was a good play by the Missouri defender, but it was a beautiful throw. And then Spivey across the middle was wide open again.
Would have been a TD, I think.
And I still believe that Spivey's going to be a good player. But
look at that cat. I mean, when have you seen a receiver for Mississippi State since Fred Ross, let alone a freshman, make a catch like Jaden Walley just made?
Jaden Walley made an adjustment there on a play and comes back to get the football. That's what Ole Miss, Bama, Florida, Georgia, LSU, well, LSU for 1 year, but wide receivers do. And you don't see that at Mississippi State, adjusting while the ball's in the air, going and getting the ball, making the play, and so on. So it was impressive. They obviously ran the ball better. I still think this is not what really sells, but their defense was phenomenal on Saturday. Now, back over to Ole Miss LSU. I'm going to say this about LSU. They are poorly coached. That is a poorly coached football team on offense and defense. It's amazing. They have talent and athletes, and it's a good thing. Man, if that group of coaches was trying to coach Mississippi State, they would have gotten beat 42-14 on the way out against Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn, and Missouri as far as kind of composite average score. That is a bad staff.
Yes.
And LSU, it's incredible.
Dude, Bo Pelini might be Peter Sermon in a mask.
I mean, watching them on Saturday, that's a poorly coached football team.
Yeah. Now, what's impressive
and boy,
is that
they have a lot of work to do between now and next Labor Day to get in a spot that's going to make LSU fans happy. Now, with the investigations going on down in Baton Rouge and LSU, I don't know how it's all going to play out, and I don't know if Ed Ogeron did anything or if he didn't do anything. And I don't know who knew what, when, and where, but between the NCAA there and the sexual misconduct allegations, they've got their hands full. That pass, Blake's pass of the game, just went down on our TV where
the Osiris Mitchell fade.
Will Rogers threw a beautiful touchdown pass to Osiris Mitchell. That's not usually what you see from a true freshman.
What a ball over the. I mean, that is. It whispered to the defender's ear when it went by.
Did it really?
It said, "Hello, touchdown. You can't stop me." And then it went right into Osiris's lap.
Wow.
The text line is on fire.
All right. Well,
right
you need to. Let's pick one.
All right.
No, hold on. East Webster J. Let's start with that.
All right.
The Mississippi Ag text line is 601-885-3776. Driven by your next John Deere tractor at Mississippi Ag. Word from Ole Miss insiders knew of the opt-out. I could argue waiting made LSU prep for 2 guys not playing. There you go.
In fact, if the team knows but no one else does, it's okay to wait to announce that. Exactly.
JC asks a question here. Bo, question for you or Detillier. Why hasn't Auburn called Joe Brady?
He won't answer. Why? Joe Brady's an NFL guy. He ain't coming back.
I think Joe Brady's more in, like, his name has been mentioned in the San Diego Chargers job.
Yeah.
Once they get rid of Anthony Lynn. Joe Brady, I think, is looking to be a head coach in the NFL instead of going to Auburn and having to face the monster of Roll Tide.
Yeah. A lot of next Sean McVay type stuff with Joe Brady. You know what I mean?
I mean, could he end
Kyle
up at
Shanahan.
the Jets or the Chargers or any number of teams? It looks like the Vikings are going to stay with Zimmer, but the Falcons are open. There could be a play there for Joe Brady, believe it or not, to be a head coach. Like Blake said, really early in his career. But that's kind of where everything's going. It's amazing. Live in the Bank Plus studio, Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Let me tell you about our guest list and schedule today. Steve Robertson at 8 a.m., David Johnson at 9. So, Hail State Insider, Steve Robertson, 8, David Johnson, 9, Ole Miss Insider, and then 9:30, Brad Edwards, College Game Day on ESPN Radio. All right, so that's kind of where we'll walk through some of the things that are going on. Ole Miss is headed to the Outback Bowl. That is a great bowl game. They're playing Indiana. That's Tom Allen.
It's a tough matchup.
Former Ole Miss assistant Tom Allen is the head coach for Indiana, and he's done a really good job up there. I mean, that's just not. I mean, there's really not any players around them for the most part. So he's at lineman, but he's done a really, really good job. And then Mississippi State plays Tulsa. Some of you can roll your eyes at Tulsa, but they've got a really good football team this year. They went 6-2, 6-0 in conference, and they almost beat Cincinnati, who people are shaking their arms and waving their hands over. Cincinnati's ranked in the top 10. And is Luke Fickell really going to stay another year at the Natty? That's a whole nother discussion. Y'all aren't interested in that. I am, but I'm a coaching carousel nerd. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. You know, if I'm giving away game balls, Will Rogers gets one in the Mississippi State defense. I understand the muff punt was huge. Mississippi State took advantage of it. That was the play of the game. Kind of felt like the wind had been taken out of their sail early in the game, losing Errol Thompson to the helmet-to-helmet. Missouri was able to extend the drive, stay on the field because of the penalty. Then they drive down and score. And you're like, 28-17, Missouri wins. Mississippi State may make it close a couple times throughout the game. And instead, MSU goes on to break the game wide open, and the score was not, as the final score was really not indicative of how the game played out. It was at one point, Blake, what was it, 44-18 or something?
Something like that. Yeah.
All right, it was an absolute blowout. And
and the Mississippi State defense did their bend but don't break, but what they also did that they haven't necessarily done every game is get some turnovers, including not only the muff punt, but the pick six by Emmanuel Forbes, who had 2 interceptions. One he took back for the house. So, I mean, those are plays that when things seem to go well, it's like all of a sudden, oh, wow, things start to really come together and you actually feel good and you play good. And that's the momentum Mississippi State has not had that Ole Miss was able to find for kind of a 3-game stretch earlier in the season.
No question. I was surprised at the Ole Miss LSU outcome, even without Moore and Yeboah. But look, Elijah Moore is worth how many points on a Saturday in college? This doesn't happen. This doesn't translate in the NFL. But in college,
right?
At least you give him at least 6 points.
I think, especially in that game, the way it played out. I mean, you got to say he's at least a touchdown.
Yeah, because what if he has 8 catches for 140 or 160
under his season average?
Right. I mean, the young man is unbelievable.
No, he has been remarkable. And I had this discussion with some people who are, locked into Ole Miss the way some people are locked into. Everybody's got that fan group, but I was having that discussion with them over the weekend, and they just talked. I said, who would you take last 10 years, from Moncrief to now, basically? Who would you take as an Ole Miss receiver? And almost every person was like, well, it'd be between AJ and Elijah. I don't know. And their one thing was AJ had 3 other main receiving options on that team besides him. Elijah has not. If you put AJ in this season, would he do what Elijah did? Maybe.
Sure.
Who knows? Probably.
Sure.
But that to have your name in that discussion after what happened in November of last year is remarkable and a testament to who Elijah Moore is.
I think the debate is Elijah Moore versus AJ.
I agree.
That's it.
I think there's
Dante is very talented. Laquan, very, very talented. There's been others, okay? Even their second-tier guys, Adeboyja and Core and others were good. But I think the debate comes down to Elijah Moore and A.J. Brown. And it just kind of depends on, how you feel, how you want to run the numbers and so on.
Double Bogey's right about the LSU game. He says, at the end of the day, it's not about your offense. You scored 48 points. If you can't cover one guy across the middle for 60 minutes, you should win the game. No,
but Ole Miss actually stopped LSU in the red zone. This is what the game has become.
But you had 6
LSU
total
had
turnovers.
to go 4 for 4 with field goals.
I'm with you.
That's terrible.
I'm with you.
LSU is so poorly. They have no idea what they want to do on offense in the red zone. They looked so inept.
That's the only reason you were close is because they messed up in the red zone, not your defense made a play. Yeah, so I think the point is Elijah Moore and Yeboah opting out stinks, but it's not necessarily why you lost. You still scored 48 points. Why don't you stop somebody? I mean
LSU's on the 4-yard line, and they look like me trying to coach a 6th grade football team. What are they doing? I just think it's one of the most poorly coached teams that I've watched, LSU on offense and defense. And to me, that speaks to really what Ed Orgeron is. I mean, he has pulled off 2 wins.
Yeah.
Now,
because he motivates. That's it.
Well, because first of all, they have talent.
Yeah.
Their margin for error, they have dudes all over the field. 1. 2, you're right, Blake. They were gifted some things from Florida and Ole Miss. But Ed's going to end on a 2-game winning streak. And maybe that LSU fans buy into that and think that there's, hey, we're getting better and we're going the right direction. I don't think they are. Even with the 2 wins, I don't think they're going in the right direction.
Still have to fire Pelini.
In fact,
right?
I think they're poorly coached on special teams too. But and so they're going to give Pelini a ton of dough, and they'll get a new defensive coordinator. I don't know what Orgeron's going to do with Scott Linehan, and I really don't know if it matters. But he's their kind of co-OC. And we'll see how that looks.
And when does Auburn hire someone? This is taking forever. And will Jeremy Pruitt have a job next year? The world may never know.
Fulmer releases a statement that sounds like Pruitt's staying.
Ugh. Woof.
Which Rocky Top is literally burning down.
They are melting.
I mean, if you notice Twitter, Rocky Top on Saturday after they were the Tito's Vodka Bloody Mary game on Saturday going into the Mississippi State game and the Ole Miss game. If you were looking at Twitter, Rocky Top was melting down on getting beat and the way they got beat by Texas A&M.
7th double-digit loss of the season for Jeremy Pruitt.
That's strong.
There's only 10 games. You lost 7 of them by double digits.
You're a top 12 recruiter, and you got beat. And Mike Leach's team with a bunch of freshmen in his first year and 48 players dressed out looks like a well-oiled machine on offense with a true freshman at the quarterback position and a true freshman leading the way at wide receiver. And Tennessee looks absolutely and totally discombobulated. Watching them on offense, it's like watching Sylvester Croom and Ed Orgeron's teams in 2005. I know that was a nightmare for a lot of you, and I'm sorry I just threw that out at you so early in the show. Hey, the show is presented by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Brand new surgery center and clinic, Lakeland Drive, Flowood. MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Steve Robertson coming up next. We'll recap the Missouri game and talk about the bowl game, the 11th straight bowl game for Mississippi State.